Hello and welcome to Geology, a channel dedicated to making concepts in biology simple, easy to understand and interesting. This video is part 3 of our series on the human skeletal system, and in this video we are going to explore the vertebral column. We have seen in part 1 video that the vertebral column is a part of the axial skeleton and is formed of multiple vertebrae grouped into 5 categories. Let us now understand the vertebral column in details. Imagine your spine as the backbone of your entire body. Literally. It's not just a stack of bones, but a dynamic structure that supports your body, protects your spinal cord, and allows you to move with flexibility and strength. Let's dive into the fascinating world of vertebral column and discover how this marvel of nature keeps you standing tall. The vertebral column, also known as spine or backbone, is a bony structure that forms the central axis of the human body. It provides crucial structural support and protects the spinal cord which runs through it. Additionally, the vertebral column articulates with the skull, the pectoral girdle, pelvic girdle, and the ribs, playing a vital role in maintaining posture, enabling movement, and supporting the body's weight. The vertebral column provides structural support for the head, ribs, and upper body, enabling an upright posture. It protects the spinal cord and allows flexibility for bending, twisting, and rotation, especially in the cervical and lumbar regions. The intervertebraldiscs absorb shock and they distribute the forces to prevent injury and maintain mobility. So these are some of the important functions which the vertebral column performs. The vertebral column is divided into 5 regions. Starting with the cervical or the neck region, it comprises of 7 vertebrae C1 to C7, with atlas being the first one, C1, supporting the head, and axis, which is C2 or the second cervical vertebrae, enabling rotation. Followed by this is the thoracic or the upper back region, which is made up of 12 vertebrae T1 to T12 attached to the ribs, providing support to the chest with limited movements. Then comes the lumbar or the lower back region, consisting of 5 larger, more robust vertebrae L1 to L5, which bear much of the body's weight and allowed for a wide range of motion. Then lastly are the sacral region and the coccygeal region. Now, sacral region is composed of 5 fused vertebrae S1 to S5, which form the sacrum, which connects the spine to the pelvis. The last one is the coccygeal region, made up of 4 fused vertebrae forming the coccyx or the tailbone. The vertebral formula is a shorthand representation of the number and types of vertebrae in the human spine, organized by region. It provides a clear structure of how the vertebrae are distributed across the cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccygeal regions. So, in a normal human spine, the formula is C7, T12, L5, S5 in brackets, and CO4 in brackets. So C7 corresponds to the 7 cervical vertebrae, T12 to the 12 thoracic vertebrae, L5 to the 5 lumbar vertebrae. S5 in brackets is because 5 fused sacral vertebrae S1 to S5 form the sacrum, and CO4 in brackets because 4 fused coccygeal vertebrae forms the coccyx or the tailbone. A helpful trick to remember the vertebral formula is using a meal-related mnemonic. So think of breakfast at 7, which corresponds to 7 cervical vertebrae. For lunch 12, remember the 12 thoracic vertebrae, and light dinner at 5 reminds you of the 5 lumbar vertebrae. You can also use word associations like 7 and cervical both start with the same sound. 12 and thoracic share the letter T, and people who work from 9 to 5 often have lumbar problems, helping you to remember the lumbar region. So this makes recalling the vertebral formula both easy and fun. The vertebral column has natural curvatures that enhance its strength, flexibility, shock absorption. These are of 2 types. Number 1, primary curves, which are present at birth, are the thoracic and sacral curves, which are convex posteriorly and help accommodate internal organs. Second one are secondary curves which are concave posteriorly, that is the cervical curve of the neck which develops as the baby lifts its head, and the lumbar curve, which is lower back, forms as the child starts to stand and walk. These curvatures create an S shape in the spine, and that helps the center of gravity to be located in front of the sacrum, and which aligns with these curves to maintain stability and upright position and walking on 2 feet. Now, intervertebral discs are soft cushion-like structures which are located between the vertebrae. These act as shock absorbers and they provide flexibility to the spine. They also separate the vertebrae from one another. There are 23 discs in total, with no disc between atlas, which is C1, and axis C2, and again between sacrum and coccyx. So each disc consists of two main parts: the nucleus pulposus, which comes from the Latin word nucleus meaning center and pulposus meaning pulp-like, which is a soft gel-like center. This absorbs the shock and then it distributes the pressure. And the outer part, which is the annulus fibrosus, coming from the Latin word annulus meaning ring-like and fibrosus meaning fibrous. This is a tough fibrous outer layer which is made up of collagen fibers, and it provides structural integrity and holds the nucleus pulposus in place. Let us now look at the structure of the vertebrae. The vertebrae are the individual bones that make up the spine or the vertebral column. Each vertebra has a distinct structure, but overall they share certain common features, like the vertebral body, which bears the body's weight, the vertebral arch, which encloses the spinal cord and consists of pedicels and laminae, the spinous process, which is a bony projection which is felt along the back, the transverse processes, which provide the attachment points for the muscles, the vertebral foramen, which allows the spinal cord to pass through it, while the facet joints and intervertebral foramen enable the movement and exit of spinal nerves respectively. Now, while the structure varies across cervical, thoracic and lumbar regions, the vertebra consistently support and protect the spinal cord. Individually, if you look at these different types of vertebrae, amongst the cervical vertebrae, the atlas and the axis are a little different. The atlas lacks the body or the centrum and the spinous process, whereas axis has a peg-like process known as odontoid process. Coming to the thoracic vertebrae, they are larger and stronger than the cervical vertebrae and they articulate with the ribs. Lumbar are the largest and the strongest, and they have a large neural spine and transverse processes. Sacrum lies between the innominate bones of the pelvic girdle, and in women the sacrum is shorter and wider when compared to the men. The coccygeal vertebrae, which are present in the vestigial tail, are very small and rudimentary, and then they are fused into a triangular curved tailbone. And in the women, the tailbone points inferiorly, whereas in the men, it points anteriorly. So, we have reached the end of part 3. Parts 1 and 2 are available on my YouTube channel Givology by Sanchita, so feel free to check them out. Parts 4, 5 and 6 are coming soon, so stay tuned and watch the space for the remaining videos. Thanks for following along.